Hello dear friends, you are on the Ruslan Bailov channel. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps its development. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. So friends, for the third day in a row, the Russian army has maintained a good pace of advance. Over the past 24 hours alone, more than 25 square kilometers have come under control on the front line. And you know, while we usually start our reports moving from north to south, today let's switch it up and go from south to north. We'll begin with the Zaporizhzhia region, specifically the situation near the villages of Kupiansk, Plavny and Stepnohirsk. As for Kupiansk itself, there's not much news. Fighting continues for the northern part of the village. Although it was previously announced that Kupiansk was completely under control, a small northern portion remains under Ukrainian control and fighting is ongoing there. The same applies to the village of Plavny. Fighters from the 135th Regiment are entrenched in front of Plavny and are now probing its defenses. Regarding Stepnohirsk, no control is currently displayed there, but if we turn on the grey zone on the American map, we can see that forces reached the high-rise district. I previously told you there were reports of a unit entering the settlement, and indeed a Russian reconnaissance group of 6 fighters entered. But as far as I know, there's currently no contact with them. They may be dead, or they may not. There's just no communication, so it's unclear where they are or what's going on. The only fact is that there is no full breakthrough into Stepnohirsk yet, though frankly, I would have been surprised if there was. It's a very difficult area. That's why I previously mentioned that if we reach Stepnohirsk at all, it would most likely be by the end of the summer campaign or around mid-September. Maybe earlier, but again, this is a very tough section, with brutal fighting happening in that pocket. Let's move on to the zone of responsibility of the Vostok East Group. Over the past 24 hours, the guys took full control of the village of Zeleny High and the territory east of it. In total, they secured nearly 7 square kilometers here alone. But the key development is that this relatively large village is now under our control and will be used as a staging ground for further advances. Where will they move next? Naturally, westward to Oleksandro-Klevtsov and then across the river into Dnipropetrovsk region. By the way, that wasn't the only breakthrough by the Vostok group over the past day. They also advanced 4.5 kilometers further south, entered Dnipropetrovsk region, and took control of a second village there. In addition to success in Zeleny High, the Vostok fighters accomplished something remarkable further south. Take a look. The guys advanced from Shevchenko, entered Dnipropetrovsk region, reached Malivka, and immediately took full control of the village. This isn't just a claim on paper. They showed video footage with flags raised in various parts of the village, proving control over the entire settlement, not just a section. Even the American cartographers, who often try to support the Ukrainian side, had to mark the area in red. The depth of the breakthrough was an impressive 4.5 kilometers. And importantly, Malivka became the second village in Dnipropetrovsk region to fall under Russian control, the first being Dakhna. As for what's next, I believe the situation in Voskresenka must be resolved first, since the AFU is still putting up resistance there. After that, the offensive toward the village of Sishnev can be expanded. On that segment, Russian forces took 9 square kilometers, so across just these 2 sectors, within the southern zone of responsibility of the Vostok group, over 15 square kilometers came under Russian control. Currently, the Russian army is preparing to advance toward Velika Mikhailivka. That village is being heavily bombarded by airstrikes. The Ukrainian defense in this area is falling apart, and large breakthroughs are very likely. The Vostok group absolutely must not stop now. Moving on, there are no new details from Pokrovsk, except that many Ukrainian military analysts now admit they no longer have a stable defensive line in the city. A large number of our sabotage and reconnaissance groups are operating there. Though when such a large number of troops are involved, it's no longer just DRG activity. It's full-scale urban assault. The entire city is on fire, and Russian artillery is striking relentlessly, causing panic among Ukrainian forces. We'll continue monitoring developments. The same goes for Myrnohrad. Given the fall of the Ukrainian stronghold in Novoekonomichne, our DRGs will soon begin operating in Myrnohrad as well. creating chaos and panic among the AFU garrison. And by the way, Russian forces also achieved success here. They advanced 900 meters toward the village of Zaporizhzhia. This is likely part of the Konstantinivka direction rather than the Mirnohrad axis. Slowly but surely, Russian forces are suppressing the AFU here. It's important to secure the defensive line along Poltavka-Rusin-Yar, which would open the way to the final defensive line in Konstantinivka. The advance here covered 1.5 square kilometers. Now let's continue. No updates from the east or northeast of Konstantinivka. Same for Chasiv Yar, the situation remained stable and unchanged. However, there were some very good and even surprising developments in the Siversk direction, specifically in the Serebryansky forest area. This news is especially unexpected. Anyone who's been following reports closely knows the Serebryansky forest is a hellish place, a dense forest with close-quarters small arms combat, full of fortifications, and extremely difficult to advance through. And now, look at this major collapse by the AFU. To be fair, they did manage to push back Russian troops a bit, reclaiming 0.8 square kilometers. But Russia advanced 9.6 square kilometers. That's a 12 times difference. That's why I call it surprising. The fighters captured nearly 10 square kilometers of dense forest, and this is confirmed by objective control footage, not just statements. Even American cartographers marked it accordingly. There were videos showing Russian troops moving and occupying new positions. If the AFU is suffering such setbacks in the hardest areas, that's a serious warning sign for them. It means things are going badly. As for what's next, I wouldn't make predictions because this part of the front, Serebryansky forest, is arguably the most difficult of all. And as you can see, the forest area is still vast and there's a lot more work to be done. I wouldn't expect regular breakthroughs here, but what's clear is that positions have significantly improved over the past 24 hours. On the Kupiansk sector, the Russian army is aiming to seize Kupiansk from the west and northwest. It's reported that recently, Russian forces entered Kupiansk from the north, from Holubivka and Radkivka. Now, they've also reached the railway near Tishankivka and expanded their control zone around Moskovka, cutting off Kupiansk from the northwest and launching attacks from that direction. According to monitoring channels, Russian forces are fighting just 2 kilometers from the highway that leads to Kupiansk from the Kharkiv side, which is west of the city. Russian forces also made good progress in the eastern part of Vovchansk. We're waiting for footage of objective control from there. And the final area we'll touch on is Kharkiv region, near the village of Katny. The AFU managed to retake 2 forest plantations here. As you can see on the map, it's nothing critical, just informing you for the sake of objectivity. I try to report both Russian gains and Ukrainian advances when they occur. To sum it all up, over the past 24 hours, Russian forces took control of 26.5 square kilometers, while the AFU took 1 square kilometer. The net gain is 25.5 square kilometers in Russia's favor. That's all for today's Frontline report. 70 deputies from Zelensky's party do not want to vote for the new Nabu law, fearing retaliation, the Financial Times reports. Deputies from the Servant of the People party in the Rada are afraid that anti-corruption bodies will take revenge on them for supporting a version of the law that, in essence, subordinates NABU and SAPO to the Prosecutor General's office, the publication writes. These fears are based on an interview with Alexander Klimenko, head of the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, SAPO, who stated that his agency is collecting all information about how the Rada adopted the first NABU law. We will analyze all situations, events, statements, all accusations, and claims against us down to the molecules. We will recreate the chronology of events by the second and analyze everything, Klimenko said. It is reported that the house of cards of Zelensky's empire has faltered. His inner circle realized for the first time that they could instantly become objects of nationwide hatred. But it was only maintained through radical methods and intimidation. Many started to think it was time to leave. Zelensky's mistake with NABU will be costly. His image as Europe's favorite hero has been reset to 0. Many saw the massive Western media attack as a signal that Zelensky would be drained. The only question is how and by what means. Ukraine should be a buffer state, not an EU member, to avoid dragging Europe into war, Orban stated. According to him, Hungary offers Ukrainians strategic cooperation, not final integration into the EU. The reason is the fear of being drawn into the conflict. Ukraine's EU membership would lead to the war being brought into the heart of Europe. And our families should not face such a risk, Orban emphasized, pointing to the real consequences for European countries. Orban also called Ukraine a buffer state. Today, Ukraine's fate is to be a buffer state bordering Russia. We are not ready to accept such a fate. Hungarians have just escaped from this. We were also a buffer country during the Cold War. Ukraine is in such a situation. It may be uncomfortable, it may not be good, and someone wants to break free from this. But the fact is that a country cannot change its address, stated Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The US and China exchanged sharp accusations over Ukraine at the UN Security Council, Reuters reports. The US told China that it must stop fueling Russia's attacks in Ukraine. In response, Beijing accused Washington of trying to shift blame and incite confrontation. Beijing's claims of imposing strict export controls on dual-use goods crumble in the face of daily discoveries of Chinese-made components in drones, weapons, and vehicles that Russia uses against Ukraine, said acting US ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shea. Chinese Representative Geng Shuang rejected these accusations, stating that China is not a party to the conflict and has never provided lethal weapons to either side. We urge the US to stop shifting blame on the Ukrainian issue or creating confrontation. Instead, we call on Washington to play a more constructive role in facilitating a ceasefire and peace talks, Geng Shuang added.